So they get to take their hands off the wheel without losing control of their company. That doesn't mean that the captain has given up control of the entire jet. So think about it. There's a pilot, there's the captain, and there's the co-pilot on a plane, right? The captain gets up, goes and has something to eat, uses the bathroom, walks around the cabin, whatever the captain is doing. Maybe on an overnight flight, they're taking a nap for 2 or 3 hours. The plane is now in control of the co-pilot. So they can go do something that they need to be doing.
Yeah.
They, maybe have just let go of the control for a few hours.
Hey, Carol, welcome to Lazy Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm excited to have you up today. I know that we're going to have a very awesome conversation. So before we dive right in, I want you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, my name's Carol Schultz. I'm founder and CEO of Vertical Elevation, an operational strategy firm.
Cool. That's pretty cool. And I actually went to your website, and I just want to let you know your website is so amazing. It's very detailed. It's very clear what you do. So it's easy to learn about your company and yourself. So you pretty much are an expert in operations, right? And you've worked with a lot of business owners, specifically founders. So I'm eager to know, what common mistakes do you notice that founders make in operations?
Well, they make lots of mistakes, but I would say the overarching mistake, and I hear this time and time again from CEOs. It's not just founders, it's CEOs and CEO founders, right? So it's both. And is that they really, and I don't want this to sound cliche, but they spend too much time in their business in things that they should not be doing. So for example, I just, before our call, got off of a call about an hour ago with a CEO founder who is going to be on my podcast. And she was telling me how, they run, it's a nationwide business. She only has about 15 employees. They hire subcontractors in the various local locations. And she said what she's trying to work on doing is to get the people that are in these other cities, these regional people, to be able to take on more work and do more, because not because they're not capable, but because she keeps flying into all these locations and overseeing everything. Right. And I said to her, and I might note that prior to starting this company 5.5 years ago, she was a chief of staff. And I said to her, this is so interesting because this is actually what I do. I go in and I get I put together this whole organizational scaffold system. And I spend 3 to 6 months with the CEO, and then I backfill them. I backfill myself and what I've just done with a chief of staff.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you should know better. You were a chief of staff. You should know that you should not be doing this. You do not have the room to grow your own business if you are stuck doing this operational work.
What did she tell you? I'm curious to know.
You're right. We need to talk about it. And we did. I mean, that was not neither the time nor the place, because it was about my podcast and her being a guest. But yeah, we'll have a call about that.
Cool. That's a pretty good story. So you said that, most CEOs, founders, they do something that they shouldn't be doing in their business. And one example is, the person you just met today is going to be, I guess, on your podcast. That person shouldn't be going to different locations and overseeing work. That's kind of like the work of a supervisor or something.
Well, it's not even just that. I said, what you have is you have founder syndrome. She goes, yeah, I think you're right.
Right. Yeah. So
only I can do it. Right?
Right, exactly. And in your experience and in your own opinion, what are some of the things that CEOs should not be doing?
Well, there's
on a day-to-day basis.
So some of those is attending many of the meetings that they go to. Right? There are, we have a little guideline that we give to CEOs. Do I need to be at the meeting? Right? So for example, if there's let's say a no or a no-go, like you have to give a yes or a no answer, and only the CEO can do that, then the CEO probably needs to be at that meeting. Okay?
Have you ever met a CEO that do not know the answer to that, either if it's a yes or no?
Not yet. I haven't.
Okay, good.
So not yet. They usually it's because somebody else needs an answer to be able to move forward with something. And if only the CEO can provide that, yes, go ahead with it or don't go ahead with it, then that's fine. Now, if the meeting is more along the lines of, well, this is kind of what we're thinking about doing, and we want to talk about if it's something that we can do or not, and there may be more discussion around it, CEO should not be in that meeting. The chief of staff can handle that meeting for the CEO. Okay. Yeah. Managing all the emails. Now, the chief of staff should not be managing emails for a CEO. That's for your executive assistant.
Yes.
Okay. And you know about that certainly very well. And so those are just a couple of examples. Managing people. I mean, I have a former client who was working 80 to 100 hours a week, a founder of a company and CEO. And she was spending 50% of her time managing people. Can you imagine spending 40 to 50 hours a week managing people instead of growing your business?
Yeah, that's tough.
So it was a huge problem for her. And there's a lot of reasons behind why that was happening that I'm not gonna bore everybody with. But ultimately, she had people skipping levels and going to her instead of going to their managers because she had problems with her management. And that's also not uncommon.
I believe that. Wow. So for those who do not know what a chief of staff is, can you share with us what that role is?
Yeah, there are different levels of chiefs of staff. There's level 1, level 2, level 3. A level 3 is going to be your highest level person who is going to really manage everything that you should not be doing. They may handle special projects. Like I said, they're attending meetings on your behalf. The chief of staff, I mean, a way to think of it is that person is your force multiplier, your proxy, your co-pilot, and your confidant. Because the chief of staff is the only person working in the business that doesn't report down through the executive team. They report to you only.
Directly, yeah.
And, you'll have over here, you've got the executive team. So they're really peers of a high-level chief of staff. So the chief of staff can manage a lot of what's going on with the executive team, so the CEO doesn't have to be bothered to do it.
Right.
They have to be very capable to do this, of course. So that person is stepping in and doing the work that you have been doing that you shouldn't be doing to now free the CEO to actually build the business. So they get to take their hands off the wheel without losing control of their company. So think about it. There's a pilot, there's the captain, and there's the co-pilot on a plane, right? The captain gets up, goes and has something to eat, uses the bathroom, walks around the cabin, whatever the captain is doing. Maybe on an overnight flight, they're taking a nap for 2 or 3 hours. And the plane is now in control of the co-pilot. That doesn't mean that the captain has given up control of the entire jet. They, maybe have just let go of the control for a few hours so they can go do something that they need to be doing.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Now, I know some founders, they use executive assistants as their chief of staff.
Yeah.
They use their chief of staff as their executive assistant.
Yeah.
They use their CEO as their everything, go-to everything. So now, what is the difference between hiring a COO, maybe an executive assistant, or a chief of staff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And in fact, I have a whole frequently asked question section on my homepage and my website that talks about the differences among these three people. But, an executive assistant's more of the person who's going to be managing your schedule, managing your emails. What are they going to triage through to you versus what are they going to answer themselves, right? So they do take some of that work off the CEO as well. The executive assistant could often be making travel arrangements and things like that. Chiefs of staff don't do that kind of work. They shouldn't be doing that. A great chief of staff, you'd be wasting them by doing that kind of work.
Even level 1 COS.
Well, level 1 maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so level one is probably somebody in their first chief of staff role, or they've done, they've been an executive assistant. So they're looking to move into the chief of staff role. So that would put them probably into the position of being a level one chief of staff.
Okay.
So maybe under those circumstances, depending on this kind of company it is, they could be a chief of staff and be handling some of those higher level EA things. Okay, I have a chief of staff. She doesn't handle any of the executive assistant stuff at all.
Yeah,
None
good.
of it. So, and then, your COO. So sometimes people think, well, what's really the difference between a COO and a chief of staff? I mean, the COO manages most things having to do with operations. And often, sometimes talent comes underneath that. And that's certainly I don't have any issue with that. I mean, listen, I was a professional headhunter for 30 years, but I'm also not a chief of staff, right? So I go in and I fix all these processes so that when I find the chief of staff, they can just carry on what I've put into place and carry it on further, right? And, so but a lot of people think, well, why do I need both? Because the COO isn't your ultimate partner. They're not the ones freeing you from meetings. They're not the ones going to meetings on your behalf. They're not the one that's handling other special projects for you and putting other structures in place. And you need that confidant. If your COO ends up being your confidant, what happens when you have to talk to somebody about your COO? You have nobody to speak to. So it's the person that isn't attached to the outcome. Yes, we want an outcome. A chief of staff wants the outcome for the CEO, but they're not attached in the same way that the executive team is attached.
There's no bias. Yeah.
Yes, that's the goal.
That's good. Thank you for clarifying that. And so now, at what point in the business should a CEO hire a chief of staff?
I think it depends, right? So it depends on the level of the person that you're hiring. They could be at $1 or $2 million and hire a lower level, a level one chief of staff, right? I primarily, I'd say my sweet spot is 5 to 40 million in revenue. Although I've worked with companies up to 300 million. Right. So it just kind of depends. And when a CEO realizes that he or she is spending north of 30% of their time on activities that would be well suited for somebody else to handle for them, they need to be considering a chief of staff.
Okay. And by that point, they should already have a team of people.
Well, they should. Yeah.
Doing
I mean,
different things. Yeah.
Exactly. I
they
mean,
cannot grow without
right.
a team.
Right.
Yeah.
You cannot grow without a team. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And have you ever declined working with a CEO, and for what reason? Because
yes, I have. And I think we learn that over making the mistakes of not saying no initially, right? If I look back on my career when I was starting my business earlier on, I worked with companies that in hindsight or clients, I'm like, what was I thinking? Because you want revenue.
Right, especially at the beginning.
That's right, especially at the beginning. And it often, not always, of course, but because you do that, you end up making mistakes and taking on clients. So I always say that if a CEO is not self-aware, I'm probably not going to take them on as a client.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
why?
Because they don't. Part of my scaffold system, because I started my coaching training in 1998, part of what I do includes coaching. And if they're not self-aware, I'm not going to be able to get anywhere with them. I had a search client years ago. And in the project that I was hired to do for the CEO, I interviewed his executive coach. And, his executive coach had been coaching him, I think at that time for, 10, 12 years. And more recently than that, I was speaking to his executive coach, and the executive coach told me, well, he doesn't really care if his people get paid or not. Now, let me just point out that he was not paying his people. Okay, he was. But that attitude, and I thought, he goes, and he's always been that way. And I'm thinking, okay, there's two things I think of, and I did not mention this to him. One is, are you just a really shitty coach? Like, why are you still working on this with him if he does not get it? I would have already likely said to him, we've been working on this for a long time. This has not changed. Clearly, I may be the wrong coach for you.
Yeah. I mean, he should have corrected the mindset, right?
Well, right. But one of my old bosses said to me 30-something years ago, the teacher's only as good as the student also. Right? So if that CEO just was so stubborn to get at this thing, it could be the CEO as well. But the reality still remains, how long do you keep taking someone's money and not seeing movement?
Right. Yeah. I feel like with you, because you are, you like providing results, right? You're not just there to take the CEO's money, right? And
it's too much angst. I can't live like that.
I think for most
it's not worth the money.
For some coaches, I feel like they're also like scared to kind of be straightforward and be blunt to the CEO because they don't want to lose the client.
Yeah, they're not real coaches in that case.
Yeah.
All the real coaches that I know that have really had training that are really, really good, none of them are afraid of walking away from a client.
That's good.
Really.
Yeah, because what's the point of being a coach if you cannot even coach your client?
That's right.
So based on your experience, and I'm actually very curious to know your answer to this question. What do you think is a hard truth most CEOs don't want to hear about themselves?
That's a really good question. I think that, and this is where the self-awareness comes in, if they're really not self-aware, they don't want to hear about their flaws.
Wow.
I had someone say to me just this week about, we were talking about building a culture of feedback, right? Somebody I interviewed for my podcast, and he has these top talks, the CEO, with he takes 5 people out from different departments, individual contributors, every month to lunch, dinner, or happy hour. And they just have an open conversation. And I said to him, have you just considered I said, and no leaders are allowed at these things because he doesn't want the leaders to get defensive or anything. And I said, well, if you built a culture of feedback, a true culture of feedback, that wouldn't be the case.
There would be transparency.
That's right. There would be transparency. Because it's really a gift to request the feedback from people. And it's not that I want to hear you bitching and moaning about everything you hate. That's why in my scaffold system, I have to teach people how to communicate effectively. Because if we're going to build a culture of feedback, people have to communicate that in a way that doesn't, make somebody feel thrown under a bus. Right? Mm-hmm. So that, I think, it's a very hard thing. Nobody really wants criticism.
No.
We don't love it. I don't love it when I get it.
Yeah.
But I take it as a gift to help me improve on who I am as a human being and as a leader. But getting defensive is not uncommon.
Yeah.
For people, and especially for leaders.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have our own pride deep inside ourselves.
Well, we do. And when you think about it, look at some of the tech billionaires. I mean, I don't want to talk about politics, but look, we have a president who, if you criticize him, he basically sends the Justice Department after you or starts tweeting about you, right? My point is that a lot of leaders are that way. They do not want criticism.
Yeah.
And, you have to look at why is that the case?
Yeah. Feedback is feedback,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all in how you give it. Again, it goes back to communication. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if someone can't afford a chief of staff yet, what should they do instead?
They get a fractional. So I place a lot of fractional chiefs of staff. So
what is a fractional chief of staff?
So a fractional chief of staff is, and I'll give you the answer to this, but it's the same thing as a fractional CFO or a fractional COO or fractional human resources person. They work for you part-time on a fractional basis because, and what you're getting is you're getting an expert, but it's not costing you a full-time salary because they're only working for you 10, 15, maybe 20 hours a week. Depends on the project, right? So when I backfill myself, when I put structures and frameworks in place, I backfill myself often, depending on the size of the company, especially if it's a smaller company, they only need a fractional. So maybe the chief of staff's there 10 or 15 hours a week, as opposed to a 40 or 50 or $60 million company or $300 million company that needs a full-time chief of staff. And then of course they at that point have the money to pay a full-time chief of staff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Fractional's a big deal.
Yeah, I met a lot of fractional people, but not a chief of staff. Actually, I feel like you're the first person I've met. So yeah, at least now I can.
Yeah.
I have somebody to recommend to other people, if they're looking for a chief of staff. But anyway, I want to talk about your business experience a little bit, because it's also not easy owning your own business and being a chief of staff for other businesses, right? So what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome in order to be successful in business?
Practicing what I now preach, which is not doing everything myself and hiring people to do it for me.
That's very important. I mean, love that.
I cannot preach this enough to everyone. It is the biggest mistake. It is a mission critical error when CEOs are doing work, $50 an hour work with their $500 an hour time.
Right.
Or $1,000 an hour time, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay, but I can tell you it's more than $50 an hour work.
Yeah.
Okay, or even $35 an hour work, or whatever that is. That is, you will never be able to build your company. And that's what happened to me. I was doing so much myself that my revenue literally stagnated. I couldn't make any money because I had to sell, I had to deliver, I had to do with the marketing, I had to work on the website, all these ridiculous things that I was doing.
Yeah.
But I no longer do.
Yeah. And why do you think in the beginning you hesitated to let go? Because
we often live from scarcity rather than abundance. Right? So I don't have a lot of money. I don't want to, spend it. If I spend it, then I won't have any money and I can't pay my mortgage. And how do I support my horses? And, all the other things that we have in our lives, right? But what you have to really think about is, and people are often, I risked my entire inheritance.
For this business. Nice. It's a good risk. You're helping a lot of people.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It was for me, but it may not be for everybody. I've had people say, oh no, we've got kids going to college and we've got this, then probably you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Listen, we live in a world where there are just giant companies that are sucking everything up. And I really, really believe that the hope, the salvation of this country and other countries is entrepreneurship.
Right.
And that we entrepreneurs don't all just sell out to these giant mega corporations. I'm sorry, it's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for feeling that way. Yeah, yeah.
And we're losing sight of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, so I have last two questions for you as we wrap up. And I actually like this question. What do you think most leadership advice gets wrong today?
From advisors?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, at least what I've seen, Christy, is that people hire advisors who shouldn't be advising on what they're advising on. Or they take on advisors. I was talking to a young man who had a full-time job building some platform. They had to do with recruiting. I don't really remember what it is. And, whenever somebody mentions recruiting, I say, okay, let's talk about it because I had, 30 years of professional headhunter. I gave him some advice. He's like, oh, I never realized that. Well, because you don't know anything about recruiting, but you're building a platform for it. And one of his advisors had worked for like Deloitte. And I said to him, in what world do you think that somebody who's a manager at Deloitte can advise you?
What is Deloitte? I'm not familiar.
Deloitte, it's one of the big consulting firms.
Oh, okay.
McKinsey, Bain. The big ones are, McKinsey, BCG and Bain, but some of the smaller ones, Anderson, Deloitte, those types of things. Ernst & Young, which now goes by EY. And it's just large, consulting companies.
Okay.
So Deloitte, this guy worked for Deloitte. He had been a manager at Deloitte. And I said, why'd you take on somebody as an advisor? You're building something, this recruiting platform. You've never been a recruiter. He's your advisor. He's never been a recruiter. He goes, well, he's hired people. And I thought, boy, you are barking up the wrong tree. Do you know how many managers don't know the first thing about how to hire properly? Most of them. And when I say most, I don't mean 51%. I mean probably like 80 or 90%.
Yeah.
Don't know what they're doing or more. Because, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, because the internet has literally destroyed recruiting, and AI is making it even worse than that now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So don't get advice from somebody who's never been in your situation.
That's what I believe. Yeah. It doesn't mean there isn't going to be an exception to that, Christy, but the exception is really pretty rare.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it just makes sense, like if you want to become a millionaire, why would you ask a homeless person? Right? It's just
that's a good point.
It's just very weird, right?
Yeah, it really is. And that's what I see a lot. I see people giving advice in areas they do not know.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't give advice in areas I don't know. I give advice in areas in counsel and coaching in the areas that I actually do know about.
Yeah, it's also because of, people, they are scared of saying, no, I don't have experience in that area. You
think it's really that they're afraid of saying that, or that they just don't want to lose an opportunity?
It could be that, but I think at the same time, they wanted to boost their ego too.
Maybe.
Like, I know everything, so come to me. But we don't really know everything, under the sun. But
no,
all right. Yeah. So my previous guest, whom I just interviewed today, so this is a very, very fresh question. And I love this question. Actually, I told him, wow, this is interesting, but also a very hard question to answer. So he wanted you to answer this question. What is one thing that you learned about entrepreneurship that you can't read in a book or hear from another coach or guru?
Yeah. And I'm going to say this as somebody, I actually called myself out in my own book, right? This exact scenario, which is books are fantastic, but they're a one-way conversation. So if you really want to learn, regardless of what you do, whether you're an entrepreneur or just somebody looking to get to the next level, you have to have conversations with human beings and get another point of view, right? So I have people, I have I have a mentor, I have a coach, and those two people are different.
Yeah, exactly. I even tried hiring one female coach and one male coach just to get different perspective, and I even tried hiring different personalities of coaches, so that I can also get different perspective. And I like that. I like the, the uniqueness of each individual. So I think for most people, they're like, oh, I only need one coach, and maybe because they think that they need to pay all of the coaches, but you don't have to pay for mentors, if it's someone that you highly respect. And that's why it's important to build relationships and connections, right?
Yes.
So that
that's exactly right.
You can have a win-win situation with other people. I
know
that.
Plenty of founders that have two coaches. They have one coach for one thing and one coach for something different.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is very, very smart. Okay, well, any last piece of advice you want to leave our listeners?
No, I just go back to if you're an entrepreneur listening to this and you are not willing to invest in your business wisely in your business, don't go into business, because you may never get to where you need to be.
I love that. I love that. That's very wise. Where can people find you online?
They can find me at verticalelevation.com. There's everything you need to know about me. You can read all about what I do. You can book a 45-minute call with me. You can download the first chapter of my book. All sorts of stuff. Some white papers, yada, yada.
What's the title of your book, by the way?
Powered by People, How Talent-Centric Organizations Master Recruitment, Retention, and Revenue, and How to Build One.
I love it. I love it. Is it on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I might just grab a copy for myself because I do recruitment and outsourcing,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed our conversation today, Carol. Thank you so much for your wisdom and for spending time with me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Christy. It was good to be with you.